N ボックス、同じ N ボックスなので、2人乗られておったのかな、はい、で、運転してたのかな、
Hello, hello. Chase the Traveler in the house with a new episode. What do the Japanese like to drive? Well, of course they drive many different types of cars, but it's pretty easy to see that the Japanese usually drive Japanese cars. I mean, they usually drive a certain type of Japanese cars. And as you can tell, they're a certain size. Yes, some are a little bigger, but primarily, when you come to Japan, you're going to notice that most of the cars that the Japanese drive are homegrown. Most of the cars that the Japanese drive are Japanese. Another thing that you're going to notice is that most of the cars that Japanese people drive are small, but occasionally you're going to get a little larger car, a family van, but for the most part, you're going to see that they're pretty much compact. Most of the things, or most of the vehicles that you're going to see in Japan are compact. Sometimes you're going to see a foreign car. Yeah, sometimes you'll see a foreign car, but I'd say, I mean, again, I don't have the figures offhand, but I would say foreign cars are about maybe 5% of the Japanese 5% of the cars that you're going to see in Japan is what I meant to say. But, I mean, people say that the roads over here are really small, that you kind of have to have a compact car to drive around. I don't believe that. I definitely don't believe that. I just think that was a gimmick just to keep foreign cars, foreign manufacturers out. And it succeeded because, like I said, you're not going to see a lot of foreign cars in Japan. You're going to see a lot of compact cars. You're going to see a lot of mid-sized cars. And pretty much, you're going to see mainly Japanese cars with the exception of certain foreign brands. Now, I would say the most popular foreign brands in Japan are going to be Mercedes-Benz and BMWs. You're going to see that way more than you're going to see American cars. Yes, you might see some American cars on the street, but I would say you're going to see this type of car way more than you're going to see American cars. And, of course, like I said, in Japan, it's a lot easier to drive a Japanese car because sometimes you might go to a garage and all of a sudden they'll tell you, hey, you know something? You can't park here if you have a foreign car. So once you hear that, and if you're Japanese, you're going to know that that's a fact of life, of living in Japan, that if you have a foreign car, you might not be able to park everywhere. So if you can't park everywhere, are you really going to want to buy a foreign car? Not unless you want some headaches. I mean, they cost more to repair in Japan. And again, like I said, Japanese cars, I mean, if you buy like a normal Japanese car, which is a compact car, which is going to be a very, very small car, you are going to pay less for gas. And that's a fact. I mean, the average price, I would say, to fill up one of these compact cars is probably 25 bucks, 20 bucks. If you take a foreign car, you're going to pay way more than that. Way more than that. But either way, I know for a fact that in America, nobody would get away with driving these teeny tiny things. I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with them. Absolutely not. Nothing wrong with driving small cars. But for some reason, the Japanese are okay with it. Americans would never be okay with that. They talk about, oh, well, I've got a lot of things. I can't fit all my things in there. Which might be true. But they seem to be able to fit everything in the cars here, no matter how small they are. I mean, I don't have a car over here. I don't drive a car. I don't think I need one. I think it's just a headache. I mean, I've got my driver's license. When I want to go somewhere that requires some type of motor vehicle, I rent one. It's not that expensive. I mean, renting a car here, I mean, you've got Toyota Rent-A-Car over here. You can probably rent a car for about 30 bucks a day. So, pretty much, I don't feel like I need one. I mean, one time I did have a car in Japan, but I realized that I wasn't taking it to work. It was just being parked most of the time. And I didn't really feel like I was getting my money's worth. I was actually losing money on it. I was paying for insurance. I was paying for parking. I mean, it was one of those larger Japanese vehicles. It was called a Pajero. Back then, it was in vogue. But again, I ended up selling it because I wasn't doing much driving. But hey, it is what it is. But, I would kind of feel weird driving a small car like that because, again, I don't think that they're safe. They're definitely not safe. And I've heard of stories of them being like totally crushed and annihilated if you get into an accident with like a larger vehicle or some type of truck where they're pretty much smushed in like a sandwich. I mean, look at these cars. I mean, a car like that would definitely be totally crushed if a truck pretty much ran into it from the front. But it is what it is. I mean, this car also looks pretty cute, but I would say it's dangerous to drive. Dangerous not because there's something wrong with the engineering or not because, it's going to blow up or anything, but I'm just saying that if you take that car out on the street and somebody just hits you, you're done. Especially if the car that hits you is bigger than you. But hey, it is what it is. It works for Japan. And a lot of these cars are small and cute and I would say, dangerous to drive. But I don't think they're going away in Japan. Not at all. And the prices, right. You could probably pick up one of these cars for about maybe less than $10,000. It'll get you to where you want to go. You don't have to pay a lot in gas. And honestly, I don't think that you're going to have too many problems in terms of like the car shutting down, breaking down, or giving you a lot of problems. I think Japanese engineering is quite good. But again, it's not for me. And I think that, again, having a car in Japan, especially in the city, is just a little bit too much trouble. I mean, wherever you go, you got to find parking. Sometimes it's expensive, sometimes it's not. But hey, it is what it is. Now, these little minivans are pretty good too. They're nice and quiet. There are a lot that are hybrids, and you don't really hear them coming. But, you know, again, the Japanese kind of like slept. They let the Japanese creep up, and now all of a sudden, you know, I mean, the cars being exported right now, the majority are not Japanese, as opposed to they really had an opportunity to basically corner the market back in the 80s. They really could have cornered the market, but then they let the Chinese and the Koreans catch up. But now it's kind of like their market isn't really growing like it used to. I mean, Nissan is kind of like in trouble. I mean, the former president ran away. I mean, you know, he got charged with a few things. So, most certainly, the car market in Japan is definitely not what it used to be. And the cars most certainly are still well made. Most certainly, I wouldn't say are inferior. Definitely not. I mean, even the trucks over here are kind of small. I would say that Japanese cars are definitely relevant in Japan, but in terms of market share, they're definitely losing out. And I don't see that improving anytime soon. And it's not because the product is inferior. I think that the product is actually quite good. I definitely think that Japanese cars are well made. They're definitely not going to cut out on you. They're definitely not going to give you a lot of problems. But I'm not sure that going forward, they're going to have the international presence that they had before. Definitely not. And honestly, I do think that the cars that I see today are a little smaller than the cars that I used to see years ago. I think that the cars nowadays have gotten a little smaller. When I came here in the late 80s, I definitely think that there was like a push to make the cars bigger. And I think that a lot of the cars were a little bigger. Yes, occasionally you're going to see a foreign car, a foreign competitor. But they're definitely in the minority. I mean, most of the cars that I see are like this. And when you see Japanese cars overseas, even if it's the same brand, the ones in Japan are definitely better made than the ones that you see in other countries with the same name. I even see that with motorcycles. Now this Toyota Matrix, now is that a Toyota Matrix? Let me check. Nope, it's Toyota Aqua. Shows you how much I know about cars. Either way, I like cars. Sometimes I wish I owned one. I mean, I could, but I'm not sure it's worth it. I mean, public transportation over here is good. You can hop on the train, be anywhere in like an hour, 2 hours, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Yes, occasionally they're late, but cars aren't really that important if you live in certain places. And right now, I don't think it's that important to me. I'm waiting for airplanes to become relevant where everybody has an airplane and they can go to wherever it is that they want to go to. I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet. Still waiting for that to happen. You know, I think that, the Japanese are kind of doing it the smart way. I mean, with oil prices going up, I mean, you don't really hear people in Japan complaining about gas prices. You don't. I mean, it's not really like a topic that is discussed as much as it's discussed in America. I mean, in America, you talk about inflation, talk about gas, blah, 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 blah. Gas is going up, blah, 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 da, 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 da. But over here, you don't hear about it as much. You don't. But look at this one. Real small. I guess it's because when you're driving around with really, really small, teeny tiny cars, you're probably not going to feel that prices have really gone up that much because you're not really paying that much more to fill up. So maybe that's why I'm not really hearing people complain about gas. Because they're not really affected by it. I think they're not affected as much. Now, an Audi. I've got to hand it to the Japanese. They protect their industries very, very well. I mean, I think that every country should be like this, to a certain degree. I mean, most of the cars that they have on their streets are pretty much manufactured by the Japanese. And I could see why an American car manufacturer would be upset, because they're like, hold on a second, you have way more Japanese cars on our streets than we have American cars on your street. That's not fair. It isn't. So the Japanese have a Japanese first policy. And honestly, I don't think it's bad. I mean, this is Japan. I mean, why would you want more foreign cars on your street when you could make your own cars? And the cars that you're producing aren't really that bad. It makes sense. Makes sense. But I don't know if it should change. I don't know if it will change. If you're ever going to see more foreign cars out there. I mean, I've seen some Chinese cars, some Chinese EVs that are sick, that look really nice. They've got a bunch of features in them. You're never going to see these cars here. It's not going to happen. I think it's like almost impossible for that to happen. The Japanese are really good, very, very good at protecting themselves from foreign competition. Unlike some other countries that aren't very good at it. But then they say, oh, well, you know something, we gotta let everything in. Because that's the way the economy's built. I'm not sure it works that well when people do that or when countries do that. But hey, it is what it is. My goodness, I don't know. I could just never see myself driving something like that. Never, ever, ever. But hey, I guess small cars are acceptable here. Small cars are okay. Nothing wrong with them. I mean, I don't know. I would just feel that this is just a little too much. What I mean by too much, I mean just a little too small. But when you think about it, I mean, a car like that, the insurance would probably be just as small, just as low. But I guess if you're from Texas, this would not work for you. This would not work for you. But, you know something? It works in Japan. It works. And somebody who drives something like this and lives in a house like that would be considered well-to-do. If you had that little Mini Cooper out there. I mean, again, this would be considered a nice Japanese house right there. I mean, for me, it doesn't have much character, but hey, it is what it is. The person that owns that, lives in there, is well-to-do. Just got off topic for a little bit. But anyway, these are the types of cars that Japanese people drive. They're definitely not that big. You could say the majority are really, really small. Then, of course, you have some medium-sized cars that are not really, really, really small. Then you've got your most popular BMW or Mercedes-Benz that you see outside in the streets. Anyway, What do you want to drive? Chase the traveler.